Welcome to the D2 podcast, where we touch the surface on topics ranging from politics, sports, and other social, cultural things. My name is Dave.
And my name is Dave.
Together, we're D2.
Welcome. So many things happening in America, as usual. We're going to touch on a few subjects today, but most importantly, an American icon has passed.
Charlie Hustle.
A.K.A. Pete Rose. Edward Rose. Just passed.
I didn't know his middle name was Edward.
Yeah, real fan there. Real fan from Ohio there.
You know what? He was my inspiration for trying to be a switch hitter in Little League Baseball. I did try to switch hit, and I did try to hit left-handed
and
a few times.
Failed miserably.
Could have been better, but wasn't too bad.
Okay, see, Pete Rose to many people was just known as the guy who got kicked out of Major League Baseball for gambling.
Yeah.
Gambling on baseball.
Right.
But I think, we need to remind the world that he is the all-time leader in base hits. Okay.
Is he?
Yeah. Is he? I think it's 4,265, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that him, or is that...
It's like 100 or so more than Ty Cobb.
Did Ichiro break his record?
No. What planet? What country is this? Are you living
Japan
in
and America? Ichiro probably hit more, didn't he?
If you combine...
considering he played till he was in his 40s. If you combine both...
Well, Pete Rose played till he was like 44 or 45.
He was a player coach.
He played like 25 years.
He was a player. He was a coach. And so I'm playing as well.
Yeah.
Put me in. I'm going to put myself in.
The last couple years were a little bit sketchy, not his greatest seasons.
Well, he was throwing games, wasn't he?
Oh, no. I'll have you know, from the documentary that I've been watching on HBO.
He didn't really throw games. He was betting on other games. Is that what he's saying?
He did bet on his teams.
To win.
He always bet to win.
Uh-huh.
But, which begs the question, what about the games that he didn't bet on?
Yeah.
Was he expecting the Reds to lose?
Yeah, he could increase the odds for his the games to...
Exactly. That is the biggest issue, because
we don't know.
No matter what, right? Let's say someone came up with a good scenario, let's say he put money on this game against the Mets or something, right?
Right.
And they're really close to winning, but he wants to put in his number one reliever at the end. But let's say the number one reliever had done a few too many innings the night before.
Yeah.
Then would he be tempted to use him anyway and sort of, waste his arm a little bit because he needs that win?
Right.
It's those kind of strategic questions that could have affected the outcome. So, those are the things that, that really, make his I just bet on my team to win argument kind of bullshit, because it still affects your strategy.
Should there be rules about betting on your own team then? Or,
of course, man.
Should you be allowed to bet on your own team?
No, you should not be able to allow betting to play any part in how it affects your gameplay.
So I think there's really no question as to whether they had to face some sort of disciplinary action now, I guess.
Yeah.
Question is, being banned for life or something, was it fair?
Yeah. That's the question. Okay, so what I learned was that he was banned from Major League Baseball, but the Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame is actually a separate entity that has its own rules.
Really?
But they defer to Major League Baseball in terms of, if he can't be part of Major League Baseball, how can we allow him to be part of the Hall of Fame? But they could change the rules there.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting was right before Pete Rose was eligible for the Hall of Fame, 5 years after he retired, they changed the rules to sort of block him from the Hall of Fame.
To block him from it. Okay.
So, there's like a couple things that feel a little unfair, like lifetime ban seems a little unfair. The Hall of Fame changing the rules at that precise moment
right
seems a little unfair.
right yeah, the guy was amazing playing when he played baseball.
Any competitive standards,
yeah,
he's a lock. He should be in. There's no one more deserving than him to be in there.
I mean,
but it's like, and he knows he did wrong. He knows he should not have bet on baseball. He even apologizes for that. But it's just kind of like he didn't work with like the baseball commissioners who people changed, right? And he had new opportunities to try to like show some contrition.
Yeah.
But he never really fully took the opportunity. He kind of screwed himself a little bit over. And I think it's because he had this sort of like still defiant attitude.
Yeah.
And also what's weirdly enough, he was kind of making a lot of money off of the fact that he was not in Cooperstown.
Yeah.
Because he was kind of like, he would go to all these signings and people would be interested because he was not in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
So that's kind of, in a way.
So that kind of gave him more notoriety, you think, and he kind of played off of that?
I think so. I think he took advantage of that a little bit.
He definitely was trying to make a buck whichever way possible, I believe. I mean, I'm sure all of those guys are probably doing that, charging big prices to sign autographs.
Exactly.
Stuff. But I mean, that's...
he should. Yeah.
It's going to be worth something later. If you let his career speak for itself, he should definitely be in there, I mean, the guy has hit, more than anyone, broke Ty Cobb's record. I remember going to a doubleheader and watching him play, and this was the year where he had his hitting safely streak.
Right.
I don't know exactly how many games it was, but
I think it was 40. He got up to 44.
Was it 44?
Yeah.
I thought it was more, but I think so. I was there when he hit safely in like one of those games. I thought it was like 42nd game or something, 40, 41, 42, maybe. He hit safely because it was a doubleheader.
Right.
And I remember him. I don't know all the numbers exactly, but I think he had just broken like George Sisler's streak after the second game or something like that.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was big.
Yeah, that was huge.
It was huge.
Because that was, I think, I'm somewhere around 85 or something like that.
I mean, that's when baseball was a lot more popular too, I think. I feel like it was a lot more popular as a kid. Nowadays, I don't think it's as popular. Maybe it's just the NBA at the time, back in the early 80s, was not popular.
Oh,
so.
Everyone was too busy doing coke back then.
Yeah. So.
So one thing I did find interesting, and I tend to agree that I think he deserves to be in the Hall simply for his achievements, because I don't think it's ever going to be broken, because I don't think people are going to play 25 years anymore.
So I mean, I haven't kept up with all the news, but Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, are they going to be in the Hall of Fame, or are they going to?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's a question of like, I think after the first 10 years or so, it goes to some like Hall of Fame committee.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who sort of bring up the old names.
Okay.
To try to, what about, this guy?
So really, once you're eligible, that year you become eligible, that's really your big year. Like, that's your make or break, basically. And then you have less chance
as you go along. Yeah, that's what it seems like. Yeah. Because it's like,
likely.
I think it's like, 5 years after your last game.
Yeah.
And then progressively, I think, there's newer guys that keep coming up.
And you're eventually not going to be in there.
Yeah. I mean,
have little chance at all.
I think Sosa, McGwire, Bonds, they've become too linked with that whole steroid era of baseball. And it's like all those homers that they jacked. I remember I got really excited. It felt like a dorky kid. We drove down to San Diego stadiums to watch Sammy hit one to me, man. And it was pretty exciting because it was like he was on the verge of like 65 or whatever. And was really fun for a while. And then after, we found out, oh, this is why they have these giant necks and stuff now. We were kind of like, okay, that's no wonder they're like cranking them out every day. Kind of made sense.
It was amazing.
It was awesome
because like no one before that. I think Roger Maris had the record for most home runs in a season with 61.
Yeah,
and then these guys were way past 61, both of them at the same year, and just
you're like
killing it.
I wonder what's up.
McGuire.
Sammy was really skinny like 2 years ago.
I know Barry Bonds was like looked very skinny, and then years later he's just like looked completely like
it looked like
the Rock.
Looked like an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Okay.
His neck was.
His
head was huge.
He went from this sort of like ripped, like stolen base homer guy. He was 30-30, remember?
Right.
And then he was just enormous. He was massive.
Yeah.
So I don't think those guys, there's too much of a taint with those guys. I think with Pete Rose, he never did that stuff. He was just kind of like, and because of people love his attitude and his like never say die, just keep hacking away. And that's why people in Cincinnati just love him. They adore him to this day. I mean, it definitely like looking back with like, the sort of in retrospect will, affect people's, I think, emotions.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many people who grew up with like Charlie Hustle, people our age, who just, I mean, that guy was the king because it's like, he seemed like a guy you could sort of emulate because he wasn't like super athletic.
No.
He didn't have the best tools or anything, but he had that he had that
he was
attitude.
Just a hard-nosed,
just hard,
gritty, like going for every little extra play possible, like sliding head first. I always picture him sliding head first right into the catcher,
There's a statue of him in front of the stadium, I think, of him sliding head first.
Yeah. That's just, he was always doing stuff like that, and then he was a switch hitter, which was cool. Like that time, but
that said, all this said, he was kind of a major dick. So we have to. I think that's
you need to go into that because I don't know anything about him. I mean,
it came out. I didn't even know this, but it came out that he fathered some kid out of wedlock, around I want to say the late 70s. But before that, there were allegations of him playing around with some much too young ladies, like
high school age or something.
Yeah, like 16, 17.
Well, what state was he in?
Ohio, which as he points out in the documentary, is 16 and over.
Yeah,
I'm glad Pete knows the rules.
He definitely knew. Yeah. He did some research before making a decision.
So good for him and his legal acumen.
Wait, how old was he at the time when that occurred?
Well, he must have been in his 20s,
like mid-20s,
at least. Yeah. So it's a little sketch, and
I think it's sketchy.
And of course, in the documentary, he sort of defends himself by saying, I bet there's guys in this room, pointing at the crew or whatever, who would be dating 18-year-old girls. Am I right? And I was just like, oh, hey, Pete, probably not the best way to defend yourself.
Yeah.
But that said,
and he was doing, when did he say those things in that interview?
Oh, this was only a few years ago. This was a recent documentary.
It's just ridiculous.
He's not a guy who, like I said, he's forever defiant.
Yeah.
And I think that in a lot of ways is to his detriment because it just makes him look terrible.
Yeah.
And he's also, remember, we also have to realize he's in his, I think he was in his late 70s or 80s when he was giving that interview. So he's probably not the sharpest that he's ever been.
You're giving him too much leeway there.
I
mean, come on. he should have known, and I think at his, you would think at his older age, he could possibly have time to reflect,
tone it down
and,
a little bit.
Yeah, and think about definitely I can be honest about what mistakes I've made in my life and stuff. I mean,
see, even then, with every question that he got,
Yeah.
I'm watching that thing, and he's just kind of like, I mean, it's not that he's being combative. Well, he is a little bit. He's just kind of like saying, ultimately, so what?
Yeah.
How does it really affect my status as being the greatest hitter of all time?
Yeah.
That kind of, or, you know, the most hits.
Yeah.
So it's just like, my actions speak for themselves. I've apologized for my past. How much more do I have to apologize?
Right.
That kind of defiant attitude.
Yeah.
And I get it, because after a while, I'm sure you get tired of saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like, he should know better. And
right.
he's a huge celebrity, even to this day. Or, you know, he was. And it's just, it's kind of sad, because maybe he should have had better PR people or whatever it was. But also this, you know, this adds to his legacy, because people love him for this kind of defiant attitude.
Well, I don't know. I mean, either way, I mean, it's all said and done. He can't do anything about it now.
I mean,
you know, he's done. So maybe he'll make the Hall of Fame one day post death.
Yeah.
And he won't know though.
I kind of felt sorry for his son, who
his oldest son? Or?
Yeah, his Pete Rose Jr. He tried to make it to the majors, and he was saying that when he got to, you know, the minor leagues, the scandal had hit, and he was getting, like, people were like, when he got his hit and he goes down to the first base, people were like tossing him dollars and stuff. And I was just like, shit, man, that's pretty unfair, you know?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this kid had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know. Pete Rose is, you know, being a Reds fan growing up, you know, he's one of the big players, big red machine. You always think about him, Johnny Bench, Dave Concepcion, Cesar Geronimo, Greg Foster, George Foster.
Joe Morgan,
Tony Perez.
See, what's funny is Morgan, Perez, Bench, I think Tom Seaver. I think they're all in the Hall.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, there was a really sad moment in the documentary where they're all like signing stuff, doing meet and greets.
Yeah.
Right before like some kind of Hall of Fame ceremony.
And
then you see, like, Reggie Jackson was there and stuff, and they're like, oh, okay, we got to go, Pete. And then they're like, oh, he's like, where are you guys going? He's like, oh, we're going to the ceremony. And Pete's just like, oh, all right.
Oh, God.
I felt so bad for him. I mean, I'm not the biggest Pete Rose fan.
Yeah.
But I felt bad for the guy, because it's like, you know, I mean, he does deserve to be there despite all his, you know, shenanigans. So,
well, you know, it is what it is. I think that, you know, you can always look back, and he's got a storied career.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I can't relate. You know, it's not like, oh, I could have been in the Hall of Fame.
The man is one of one. You know, he's the most hits all time, probably never to be matched.
Back when I was a kid, he was one of the big. He was one of the big players I was always watching. So
everybody's like sitting there crouching down, like how he batted. You know, remember he would that stooped over.
Was that him or Joe Morgan? I know he did that. He like had his bat punched over. I remember Joe Morgan. We used to copy the other one where Joe Morgan would flip his elbow every now and then.
A little twitch.
Yeah. And then remember, was it George Foster? He was kind of line up his bat.
He was the home run king.
Yeah, he was a home run king.
Couple
like
years.
40-something home runs at one.
Concepcion was all about the slick fielding.
Yeah. Was he a shortstop?
Yeah, I think he was my favorite, because I thought he was so good on the field. He was so awesome.
Yeah, he was Golden Gloves for sure. But
him and Joe Morgan at second, and that was those teams were just incredible.
Yeah.
But,
2 years in a row, World Series.
Oh yeah, 75, 76.
Yeah.
Glory years, my friend. Jesus. So I guess we have to bid a fond adieu to Pete Rose, and the great Hall in the sky. God bless him for all the entertainment that he's brought.